Welcome back to the Outnumbered podcast with Joey and Alleigh, where we talk about our life. We talk about life with kids, our jobs, marriage, family, relationships, all of that and much more. In the last two episodes, we talked about our story and how we went from being high school sweethearts to outnumbered by our kids and what we do now in our careers. And so you can check out episodes 1 and 2 for that. But today in episode 3, we're going to do something a little bit different.
We're going to answer some questions. We got some questions from our youth students and our youth leaders.
Yes.
And we are going to answer them.
Yeah, we got some good ones. Number 1, how do you support your spouse in their individual callings?
I feel like that probably differs based on what their calling is. But like for us, for like youth group, I'm here.
With me?
Yes.
Yeah.
At youth
together.
group.
Yes.
And so I think like for that, I'm here supporting you like physically. I mean, in a different season, if that wasn't realistic, like, I don't know, like just having the kids so that you can do your calling.
Yeah. And that's the best case scenario is if we can do it together. Cause I think like my calling has always been students and teaching.
Yeah.
And so at first that meant I was a public school teacher and you were like, you couldn't really be involved in that really at all. Something. It was really hard. And like you couldn't just come visit me at work and stuff because it was a public school. But now I'm still doing that. I'm teaching and working with kids but I would say actually during that season, we did serve together in a youth ministry.
In a different capacity, yeah.
And we were both working with students at the time. But yeah, so I'd say the best way to support is if you can literally be there to support and do it with them. But if that's not possible,
yeah, like if someone's calling is like they're a firefighter, I think just like supporting, especially if you have kids, like just making sure like the home front is covered so that they can focus.
Yeah, and I would say that's the best way I support you in what you do.
True.
Is I am always, if I'm not working and you have stuff to do, I'll take the kids.
Yeah, because And
we'll come visit you and bring you snacks and
but
stuff.
Trying to do my job with children is I find it very stressful. Mm-hmm. Some people like love taking their kids to work, but I just feel like my brain is not at that capacity in this season. But I think too, just like listening to them talk about it, maybe there's nothing physically you can do, or maybe you don't have kids and you don't have to do that, but
be interested.
Yeah. Be interested. Like show them you're listening by body language, eye contact. Like, I don't know if you need to like, you know how they say like repeat it back to them so that
ask
like in a different way so they know you listened. But yeah, ask questions. Like
pray for them. Don't
be on your phone when they're talking about it.
Yeah.
Like you can tell when someone is listening to you versus not listening to you.
And I would say, I think it is common and good for couples, for the husband and wife to have different callings, but then I think it would be good to find a calling together.
It doesn't have to be a calling even, but just
and obviously that's going to be your family. It's like your
interest.
First calling is you're going to serve together by raising your kids, but is there something else? And maybe it's one of the person's calling. Like I think you also feel called to like youth ministry, and so you get to do that with me. I don't really feel called to interior design per se, but you know what I mean? So but like if there's one thing, you know, a way that you can serve together, that's always awesome. Yeah. Especially if you're in a season before kids.
Well, and I think having as like a mom, even if it like for me it's a lot of it doesn't necessarily feel like an escape when it's like work related, but my passions and my calling, or not my calling, I don't know if I would call it my calling, but like my passion, my biggest passion probably besides like our kids would just be like, I don't know, creating in some form. But I would say like as like a parent, a mom who's like with her kids all the time, like I need to help sometimes carving out time or finding someone to like watch them while I go do whatever I need to do, or while I, you know, do a project in our house that I can do like kind of by myself.
Right.
So I think like having that third party, well, like you or someone like that to like take the kids, or to be like, hey, on this day, from this time to this time, I'm going to take them and you go do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Paint whatever you want to paint.
Exactly. So I think, being aware of what your spouse needs in order to do their calling effectively and supporting them in that, being interested, listening, asking good questions.
Yeah.
All right. Hit me with number 2.
Okay. Number 2 is, what was the best part about being newlyweds?
I was thinking about this yesterday because yesterday afternoon, I was trying to gather all of our tax documents,
Yes.
which should have taken, I don't know, 30 minutes. And I was trying to count how many times I was interrupted in that time that it was like 5-year-old pooped his pants, and then the 2-year-old wouldn't stay in his crib during nap and kept escaping, and then he pooped his pants. And then it was like so many. I was like sit down for like 5 minutes before getting up.
Yes.
So I would say that's my answer: being able to do things,
Just do things
uninterrupted, which is funny. And I'll say this too. And then what we would have answered back then, I don't know, is what we answer now. But just now, 7.5 years later, in hindsight, I'm like, oh man, just life's a lot different when you have kids as opposed to being a newlywed.
I was gonna say my answer then probably would have just been like, oh, coming home to your favorite person, not having to like schedule time to hang out, but just knowing like they're there when you're home, and it kind of, you see them in those gaps versus like having to actually like plan it out and like schedule it. Versus like now looking back, it's like, oh, maybe just like being able to watch TV whenever we wanted. I don't even feel like we watch that much TV, but just like sometimes a midday show is just really nice. So I think probably a different answer then, but I think sometimes, I mean, we love our kids and we love our season, but it's just sometimes different. Looking back, it's like life was a lot simpler, and sometimes even having one kid, sometimes like I look back and I miss that like season of just like more simple.
Yes.
Just simpler everything.
Yeah. No, our life is awesome. It's just a lot different. It's a lot louder, and a lot crazier, and there's a lot of things going on in the house.
Yeah.
And if it's quiet,
there's something
wrong.
It's
not a good thing. Yeah, it's not a good
Someone's in something. One time it was because someone's arm was in the toilet.
Nice.
Yeah.
Gross.
But I feel like some like memories that I have from like our first like couple years of marriage, I guess like 1.5 years before Miles. We feel like we watched a lot of shows together. We got through like The Office, and which was, I was just there because you made me.
Yeah, that's true.
But it was okay. And then like we had pizza every Friday night, just like some traditions. I feel like we just had some fun things that we did.
We could slow those things down. We should be a lot more intentional
yes.
about it. Yeah.
We started that, and then I was like, oh, we missed last Friday.
Pizza with our kids. They like it.
I think that's mostly it. I think mostly just simpler.
Yes.
But of course you don't know that at the time.
True. You ready for 3?
Yep.
What is the funniest memory in our marriage?
Well, mine, I don't know. Some people might find this insensitive, but it's something
Bring it on.
Years ago, and I laugh about it still.
You do laugh.
But okay, our first house, it was nice. Like it was mostly like updated, but when we moved in, there was the bathroom upstairs. I feel like the kitchen was pretty updated, but the bathroom, just the tile was kind of grody, and the bathtub
shower,
was kind of gross. So we replaced the bathtub, and then it was time to tile. It was our first
like big DIY project.
We had like 2 doors that like an L, and then it was really small in there, and you guys had to get a big cast iron tub
wanted the
in there
one.
Somehow, and
you wanted the heavy one. We did it.
You did it, and then we had to do the tile, and so we were like, well, instead of just chipping off all the individual tiles, why don't we just take the drywall with it? So, because we were going to do a new backer board, so we just took the drywall and the tile attached to it.
And by we, you mean me.
Yes. Out. Mm-hmm. So like cutting it into like sections, and then it was very heavy. So
it was on the 2nd story, so I had to carry it all down our like back steps.
Our deck stairs, which were a little honestly treacherous.
Yeah, and I was loading it into the trash can.
Yeah, and I was inside, I guess, and your sister was with us. Mm-hmm. She was spending the night because she's a lot younger, and I think was she out there with you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just hear like yelling. And I don't know if you had just thrown something in there or if you were moving the trash can. It was full of the big drywall tile stuff. It was probably a couple 100 pounds. Uh-huh. And you were trying to put it out on the curb maybe. And it fell over on top of you. And I just remember you like, I'm going to like cry laughing telling this. I just remember you like calling out for help. And I think Kara went and helped you.
Yeah, I was pinned to the ground beneath the trash
I don't know. It's probably not funny to some people, but I just feel like that's something we tell like often.
You and my sister
we think that's funny. He was not hurt. Story. If he was like really hurt, it wouldn't be funny, obviously, but not hurt. Just a little ego.
That's the funniest, your funniest memory from our marriage.
I mean,
huh?
that's what came to mind.
Okay, that's fine. Mine would probably be one of our first memories of our marriage. And I don't know if it's funny. I think it's funny now. I don't think we thought it was funny back then.
No, probably not.
We got married, and then we decided to go to Jackson, Wyoming for our honeymoon. And which I would say I would recommend that a road trip for a honeymoon.
Yeah, it was fun.
Especially if you're trying to save money. And also, I feel like the weeks leading up to the wedding are insane. And I feel like I didn't even see you for like 3 weeks. Because we were both so busy. And then we got to just sit in the car for like 7 hours.
And on our own timeline, which is nice. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Especially after such a big, stressful.
So we kind of just got to talk about everything and catch up and talk about the wedding and all that. But anyway, so it was, I think it's about 9 hours from here, but we broke it up. We did a few hours the first day. So I think we had 7 hours to go to get to Jackson.
And it was 9.
And we were supposed to be there by around 4 o'clock. And we were 30 minutes away, and we saw a plume of smoke. And we knew what that meant, but we kept going. And then highway was closed. They had like just closed it. 30 minutes away. We were going to get there at 4. And so I think I looked at my phone, and every alternate route was like 5 hours, 6 hours, something like that. So I was like, there's no way. There's got to be a better way because we're that close. So we pulled into a gas station, and I went in, and I would say it's just like if you were to picture like middle of nowhere, Wyoming, and you ask a guy for directions, this was that guy.
The word you used was... I always use the word crusty.
Crusty old Wyoming man. I know that's not very nice.
I feel like you got right back in the car and you're like, this crusty old guy in here.
I don't know why I said crusty. He was really nice.
I don't know either. I didn't see him.
Like old gray beard, tall cowboy hat. Like he was Wyoming. So the guy to ask for sure. But he said there's 2 options. You can go the way everybody's going to go, and that's highways like basically all the way down Wyoming, cut over to Idaho, and then up the back way to Jackson Hole. Or
well, how long was that one?
He said that would be like 5 hours. He said, or there's this dirt road you can take. It didn't even have like a name. So he's just like giving me these instructions. Yeah. So I got in the car and I was like, hey, we can go the way everybody's going to go, or we can take the road less traveled. And we weren't even at the road. I don't even know if the road was a church back then, but we were like, it was. But some foreshadowing, but we say that a lot around here, take the road less traveled. So that's what we did. And man, I think we got lost 3 or 4 times.
Well, they were like, he was like, it's down this dirt road. So we'd be like, this is the dirt road. This is it. And then it would dead end. Or it'd start getting really rough. And we're like, that's not it. So we would then turn back around, go back 10 minutes up the road, go down the next one. And
then we couldn't find it. And then we were in this like rural part where there's some houses. And I remember you wanted to ask somebody for directions.
That's from my mom. My mom does that. She's like, just pull over and ask.
But I was like, no. We're in the middle of nowhere in Wyoming. And there's these long driveways. So I'm like, we're going to drive this long. We're going to get shot. I was convinced we were going to get shot, but we didn't. So that's what we did. So we went down this huge driveway, and their dogs are like, run up to the car, and they're like trying to get on the car, and then
like, ended
up being the sweetest couple.
Yes, and they were like telling us exactly where to go. They knew
the way, yeah. So we finally got on the right dirt road, and I'm driving it was my 2007 Mazda 3, like front wheel drive, and on all these dirt roads, the car was covered in dirt by the end of it.
Yes.
So we finally find the right road. We get through. I remember actually having some deep theological discussions with you on that dirt road.
I remember listening to a podcast about hell.
We did, yeah. But by the time we finally found where we were going, and then it was one of those classic, you finally hit pavement. You're like, woo!
Well, you're flooring it through the dirt too, but.
Yeah, we finally hit pavement, drops you in a little town in Idaho. So the speed limit drops like, 30 and the cop's sitting right there. So we get pulled over. And at this point, it's like 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
It had still been 5 hours, even though we went the other way. We could have gone the longer way, but we had more of an adventure. But it's like 9 o'clock, get pulled over. I may have had a little bit of a history with speeding tickets in my youth, but this one I got out of.
We could have swapped real fast, but.
He didn't give us a ticket because I said we were on our honeymoon and we'd been in the car for like... ever. At that point, it was
like 12 hours or something when it should have been
7
or 8.
7.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we made it around like 9:30 or 10 or something. And the only thing open for dinner was Wendy's in Jackson.
True. We went to Wendy's.
Yep. So I don't know if that's funny or not. That might have been really boring for everybody watching, but that was my story. What's the next one?
If you have sex before marriage, does that mean you should break up?
Good question. So, man, where do I even start with that? I think, first of all, I think there's a difference between, are you having sex regularly? Was it a one-time thing?
Or is it past or current? Yeah.
Yeah, but I think ultimately I would start by saying God's grace is sufficient enough for any shortcoming, any sin, any thing. It covers all. But with that being said, I think, man, that's probably a critical point in your relationship where, especially if you're trying to do things the right way, you wanted to wait towards marriage, and then something like that happens, I think there really is a crossroads. And I think a lot of times that might end the relationship, but I think we would both say it doesn't have to.
Yeah, I think forgiveness is probably the biggest. Asking for forgiveness from that person, but also from God, and then
forgiving yourself too. Probably there's a lot of guilt and shame attached to that.
Yeah, but then it just makes me think of, is it the woman at the well where Jesus says, "Go and sin no more"? Like,
no, that was the. I know what you're talking about. That was the prostitute that they were going to stone.
Oh yeah, okay. So it just makes me think of that, where it's like, you're forgiven, but then like, you need to shift now.
Right.
You can't just continue in that.
And I will say too, this might go without saying, but I'll say it. The Bible God teaches that sex belongs inside of marriage, and I would say we're huge supporters of that. Like, I think anytime you're gonna add, and I think the reason why God designed it that way is because anytime you add sex, the more you have sex outside of marriage, the more complicated things are gonna be. I think the way that God designed it is the simplest. Like, and it doesn't mean you won't have hardship or weird things in life, but really you're going to eliminate the number of issues and problems that you can encounter if you do things the way God designed.
Right.
And that's not to say, again, that God's grace is big enough, and I firmly believe you can have a happy marriage if you've had sex before marriage, right? I firmly believe that. But
you also,
all I'm saying is, for young people watching, I'm advocating for waiting until marriage. Yeah.
I think too, like, if you see a future with that person, like, I think, well, first of all, I think there has to be this breaking point of like a kind of like a new year, like the new year, like New Year's Day. For some reason, we just feel like, oh, fresh start,
Yeah.
Like, I think there needs to be a mark of like that, where maybe you split for a little bit, not that you're breaking up or anything, but as long as you see a future with that person,
yeah,
I think just creating that like dividing point where it's like old relationship, like new relationship. And obviously with that, I think a lot has to change in that.
Yes.
I don't know if you had boundaries before, or maybe you just need better boundaries, or maybe you need boundaries altogether, like you didn't have any. I think having boundaries is essential, but then also like writing them down, bringing someone else in, whether that be like as a couple, like a mentor as a couple, or an individual mentor for each person, but just like to hold you accountable. I know for me, like, so often I write down goals and then I honestly like lose the paper. Like, I wrote it down, but I can't find it, and then I never think of that thing again.
Yeah.
So I think just being really intentional with like following up with them so that you don't forget, but also that you can like follow through and make it happen. But I think bringing someone, an accountability partner, into that. Yeah. But I think, I don't know if this is wrong to say, but I feel like if you see a future with that person and you feel like you can create a healthy relationship, like, I think that's more of a reason you should try to make it work. Mm-hmm. In that your brain is now chemically bonded in a different way than it is with other people. And obviously if it's not a healthy relationship, that's not good advice. But I don't know. That's just kind of my initial thought.
Unity is going to be really important here too, where both people...
Yes.
Obviously, both people have to recognize that was wrong and we shouldn't do it again.
And that they want to better the relationship moving forward.
Yeah. And if that's unequally yoked and one person is very convicted about it and the other person's not,
right, that's a problem.
That's not healthy.
No, that's an issue. I guess I'm talking from a standpoint of like they're both on the same page, right. Both agree. But I think also like one thing we talk about a lot is that God created an order on purpose. Like, I think so often like young people think like, oh, God doesn't want me to have fun or whatever. But when you really think about it, like, you have this order of like marriage first and like everything else follows. And I think like when you alter that, not to say it can't be beautiful, but like to have a baby outside of marriage, like, could it work out and be beautiful? Sure, it could. Yeah. But so often it doesn't. It's messy, and there's multiple, parents, step parents. And not to say, again, that can't be a good thing in the end, but it makes it a lot more complicated along the way versus waiting, choosing, a good person that would be a good father and a good husband, and then having kids once you're locked into them,
Right.
I think that just creates a lot more peace in a lifestyle than
Yep.
doing it all out of order.
Yep. And again, yeah, we believe firmly in God's grace and his ability to restore any situation. But yeah, for young people watching, we recommend God's design, his order. But back to the question. So yeah, I would say the answer was no. What was the question?
Should you break up?
Should you break up?
I don't think that is the reason.
I'm not going to say yes every time you should. No, I'm going to say no. I mean, we believe that, there's absolutely a path to still make it work, but it's going to take a lot of work.
Yes.
And I love what you said about use it as a pivotal part in your relationship, or let's stop, let's figure this out. And if we're going to move forward, we'll move forward with boundaries.
Right. And boundaries being like realistic, measurable, not like do this less or do this more.
Yeah, you want it to be. It needs to be like
a hard line of like no,
that leads
whatever
us to
this
the next
is,
question.
Yeah.
So this is what were boundaries that you put up while dating, and so we're already talking about boundaries. We'll talk about us with boundaries a little bit, but yeah, you want it to be something that's really specific. And I always say this with like if you're setting goals, you should set SMART goals. So they're which is an acronym, but they're goals that are specific, measurable. So you shouldn't say like
specific, measurable, attainable,
realistic and time bound.
Bound.
And so I'd say not all of those really apply to boundaries, but they probably could. But I would say, you're not going to say something like, well, our boundary is that we're not going to go too far.
Yeah. What is that?
Because what is that? That's hard to, that's not specific. And so,
right.
I always tell dating couples when they're setting boundaries that they should go like to a public place, like go to a coffee shop, sit down. Both of you probably are writing them down, and you're going to be really honest and open about what your boundaries are. And I think we dated for almost 5 years before we got married. So we had a lot of conversations about boundaries. And I think there were plenty of times where we redid them, looked at them again, because 5 years is a long time. And so I think that's good. It should be kind of an open conversation. But once they're set, they're set. Right. And then if a line is crossed, then kind of like we were just talking about, and you go back to the table and figure it out. What went wrong? Why did we accountability? Why did we go this direction? And I like that you keep saying that too, is bringing in accountability.
Well, I just think it's so easy to like when you're dating, like isolate, especially in high school, like isolate like from others. Yeah. I mean, we had some other friends that were like couples, but otherwise it can kind of feel weird, like just hanging out with like a couple and then like a bunch of single friends. Like, not that it needs to be weird, but just like sometimes that feels weird, maybe more so for them, honestly. But I think like it's kind of an awkward place in that it's like, not a lot of couples that you have that are friends in high school make it. So it's easy to like isolate and just hang out together. Yeah. But I don't know that that's the healthiest. I think bringing not to say there's never a place for that, but to bring in other people, other friends, and do more group things. So
I would say boundaries should be specific. Yeah. Recommend it for every dating couple.
And I think a good lens, just thinking about boundaries, like, how do you set boundaries? What's good enough and what isn't? I think for me, like, at the end of the day, like, everything in life, the goal should be, like, purity, integrity, like, doing things, seeing everything through a lens of, like, purity, where, if you're thinking, like, well, is this too far? Is this okay? Like, I don't know, like, imagine, I don't know how to say this, not being weird. It sounds really cliche, but, like, would Jesus approve of it? Like, I feel like that's just such a simple, like, yes or no. Because I guarantee you're not going to be like, oh, I don't know if he would. Like, he either is or he isn't going to approve of that. Yeah. And so I think just seeing everything through the lens of, like, purity of, does this make me pure? Does this make my heart pure? Does this make me more like Jesus?
Yeah, that's good.
I don't know. The answer, I feel like, is going to be a clear yes or no.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Awesome. I think we have 2 left.
What was your biggest fight or our biggest fight?
We've never had a fight. Just kidding. I remember our first fight. I don't think we can get to biggest, but I don't think. Do you remember I remember the first time we ever like argued. We were dating in high school. Do you remember this?
I mean, I think so.
We were dating in high school. I remember we were sitting in the hallway where we used to hang out. This was like early on, and obviously we got along great, which is why we wanted to date, but we had an argument about milk.
I don't remember it being in the hallway.
Where do you remember
I
it?
thought it was on my parents' deck.
Maybe that was part 2, but I remember being in school. I don't know. And I grew up drinking milk. My
Every
parents,
day.
yeah, every dinner we had
And I just
milk.
didn't.
And you didn't. And so you told me, something like, you don't need to drink milk. Milk's for baby cows. And I was like so offended. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, my parents said milk is good for you and you need to drink it every day. And then, I was like, you're crazy. I thought you were crazy for saying that you don't need to drink milk.
I mean, I feel like we could do a whole nother episode on that, honestly.
We can,
on milk.
To get into it. We've learned a lot about milk since then. Yes.
Well,
but I think that
at the time, my viewpoint of that is different than it is now.
Yeah.
Partially.
I know. But and I think that.
But yeah, we couldn't agree.
I don't know if it was the same conversation, but I remember that kind of led to us talking about like vaccines and like a lot of stuff.
Really?
I think so.
I don't remember talking about any of that before we were married.
Oh, I definitely do. We talked about it at least once.
I don't know that I even had an opinion on that stuff.
You did, because I don't think I liked your opinion. I don't know. But anyways, the point was, though, I think I realized, oh, man, we don't agree on everything, and that's okay.
I'm not good at agreeing to disagree. That's not a strength of mine.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a right and there's a wrong in a lot of cases.
And you've probably pulled me with you into most things that you agree. Anyways, would you say that we've had, I don't know that I remember like the biggest fight. I don't know. Would you say there's one that was like the biggest fight?
I don't know that we're like big fighters. I mean, that's not really like I sometimes can get like aggressive in the moment, but I don't feel like I'm like I like to then figure it out and move on. Like, I don't want to harbor and hang on.
I feel like we usually figure it out pretty quickly.
Yeah, because I don't want to think about it all day.
I think most common that happens for us is like there'll be some sort of disagreement and then we both just don't talk to each other.
Not intentionally necessarily.
On my part of it. Like, we just are like really quiet. Oh. And then I'm always like, somebody's got to apologize first. And that's always the thought that I have in my head.
I don't feel like it lasts very long.
No.
I don't like
and
to
I think our goal
feel like I'm not in harmony with someone for very long.
No. And just when you're like where we are now is like, if we're disagreeing, like Miles picks up on it. Yeah. So fast.
You're like, guys, when we're not like disagreeing,
like,
guys, get along.
We'll be like joking around and he'll be just, stop it. And I'm like, get on it. So like now it's even it's harder to fight. Which
I know some people talk about like only fighting like behind closed doors. I don't know if that's healthy or if like you just need to figure out how to fight healthy. And they need to see that because you need to see healthy disagreements. But if it's not healthy, then maybe hide it. Until you figure it out.
Or
like,
be nice to each other. Yeah.
I just mean until you figure out how to do it in a healthy way.
Yeah. But I would say, like you said, I think most of the time we try to figure it out quickly in the same day. But yeah, I mean, now with kids, it's a lot different. And I think, and I was saying too, other than picking up on it, it's hard to be a good parent if you're fighting with your spouse. And so I think for that reason too, is like we try to figure it out quickly so we can get back to what we got to do in the daily moment and just be there for our kids. And, but I think like I'm like scanning through all the years and I don't remember one fight that like stands out above the rest.
No, I would say like some common themes of things we disagree on are probably pretty normal from like most couples, but I would say like occasionally from time to time, like we disagree on like parenting things. And it's honestly, we were talking about this yesterday a little bit, like sometimes parenting, finances, basically, I feel like we disagree on not those, like we have the same goals. We have the same view of what it should be. It's not that. It's like basically what we talked about yesterday was like, it's usually me nitpicking. Like when you respond differently than I wanted you to respond to the kids.
Like to our kids?
Yeah, then I say something and then you feel like I'm attacking you because, well, maybe I was.
For me, I think whenever I get upset with you, I think it's if you poke at like an insecurity that I have. And so I think humility is huge because a lot of times you're spot on, but it's just me getting offended. And so I think that's where a lot of our disagreements as a married couple come into play.
I mean, I feel like in terms of like aligning on like values and beliefs and even goals. Like perspective and goals, like we pretty much are in alignment with, I feel like, all of that. Yeah. There's really not much we like really disagree on.
Well, and you always talk a lot about expectations.
Yeah, I think it's the way we communicate those.
Yeah, it's like you're watching me parent, and your expectation of me parenting is something that
right.
I'm not even aware of myself.
Yeah, that's what I was telling you yesterday. It was that like there's all these like parenting Instagram accounts that I follow, and so like I'm seeing things all the time that are like, you know, when a kid does this, respond this specific way, because if you respond this way, then it makes them feel this.
You're messing them up for life.
And so then I'm thinking, oh my gosh, we shouldn't be responding that way, but you didn't see that because you don't follow them on Instagram. That's not been in your mind, and so that's in my mind. That's my standard for me. But then like you don't even know that, so then you respond a different way, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that's gonna screw up our kid when it's not.
Yeah.
And it's not even that you're doing anything negatively. It's just that I don't know. Like
I think that piece that applies to so many areas of marriage, like the expectation piece.
Well, and I think just the way you approach it.
Yeah. Well, like, and making sure that I'm like. So that can be solved by, hey, Joey, I saw this cool thing about parenting. We should try to do it this way. And we have a discussion about it. Then I know what you're expecting, but I don't know. And so then it causes tension
I think that
because the expectations are unspoken. And so
large. Yes,
and that applies to a lot of areas of marriage, I think.
So maybe like we could talk next about, this is my own question that I'm adding in, but how to like avoid conflict. And not because you're just trying to avoid it, but like how to actually like find peace in your relationship. Like there probably are people that just have a tendency to argue more as a couple.
Well, I would say, what are the sources of the conflict? Like we identified a few of them, right? It could be like unspoken expectations that you're holding your spouse to and they're not even aware of it. And so then you're getting upset with your spouse because they're not meeting your expectations, but they don't even know what those are, right? So that would be one. So if that is something you identify as a source of conflict, then talking about expectations for each other. And then like the one I mentioned was like insecurities too. And so like I think humility helps big time when it comes to conflict.
On both sides. Like, it has to be both sides.
If you point something out and you're spot on with like, oh yeah, I shouldn't have reacted that way when a kid did broke the lamp or whatever. Like I shouldn't react that way. But a lot of times I think my initial response is defense. Like I'm fine. Well, you know, but it should actually be like, nope, you're right. I screwed up. And that's, you know, so I think those are just two examples.
Well, and I think to always like approach the conversation kindly, and it doesn't mean they will take it well the first time, but I think they'll come around as long as you're both in that humble place. I think sometimes when I'm bringing a correction, or I don't know if that's the right word, like to you of like something I would like to see different, or like usually it's like, can you push in your dresser drawers, please? So Adler doesn't see it as a ladder. But like approaching that in a way that's like, I know you're not trying to, or I know you're not trying to make a mess, or I know you're not like trying to make it.
There was one the other day where I left something out on the counter, and it was like glass. I forget what it was, but you said something like, just the way you said it was like, instead of stop leaving stuff out, you were like, hey, I saw that you used this thing, and I'm glad that you used it. It was the tooth putty. Yeah, so you're like, it's weird.
It's a glass little jar, and we have tile floor, and so the second one of our kids knocks it off the counter, it shatters.
But it's something that helps your teeth health that you've been wanting me to use for a long time, and it never happened.
Yeah, I'm always like, it's right there if you want it.
And so I used it, but I left it too close to the edge of the counter. And so, but I love the way you said it. It was
multiple times, and so then at one point I was like,
but you were like, hey, I love that you're using the tooth putty, but can you just scoot it back? But then the way that you worded it was, I was like, so much.
You didn't, because
my initial reaction wasn't defense
versus like, hey, can you put the tooth putty back when you're done?
Yeah. My initial reaction wasn't defense because you complimented me first.
Right. It pulled down your guard, maybe. Yes. I need to get better at that because I feel like sometimes my tendency is naggy, and I'm not trying to be naggy. I just feel like in my mind it's like either I'm annoyed already and it's not necessarily your thing, it's not your fault, or it's just like.
Sorry, we didn't have a biggest fight to tell you about, but
I talked about arguing
about milk. So
I would say, oh boy, mom brain, here we go. I was just going to say something. Oh, I was going to say, I don't know fully, like, say you totally disagree on the way your kids should be parented. I don't know what I would even say there.
I would say go to marriage counseling.
Yeah, you might need to find a middle ground of like, well, we don't agree, but like where can we both agree? So in that case, I mean, I feel like we pretty much agree on the way things should be done.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of how we get there.
Most of it, I think, small things. All right, last question. You ready?
Okay.
How do you budget your money?
That's a good question. How do you budget your money?
I don't anymore. You do.
Yes.
No, this is actually your question.
This is actually, I feel like we have a long story behind this.
Initially, I managed the finances.
Yeah, you were the
for a while, like
budgeter.
probably the first 6 years.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I think because I saw
Well, your
my
dad
do it.
He set you up with like the spreadsheet.
And so he's really good with money. So I was just trying to model the way he does it. Would you say I did a bad job? I want to say I did a bad job, but I didn't do a great job.
We just weren't like tracking it throughout the month. Like at the end of the month, we'd go in and like you would fill in like everything we spent. But I don't really know that we like knew where we were during the month. I didn't know like say we had like $300 set aside for miscellaneous items. I don't know. And like we'd already spent $550, but we didn't even know. You know,
Yeah.
like we just didn't follow up. We didn't check in.
We don't need to dwell on the past.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I don't.
Tell
it's
them
not
what
that
you
you
do now,
weren't doing it
what
well.
you do now is awesome. So how did this switch even happen? It was like a year ago. Did you ask if you could do it, or did I ask you?
I think I did, but I don't remember why.
I don't remember why either. But I think you expressed interest in like
maybe were we trying to pay for our birth, or was it before that?
I don't know, but
Was it
for
something
some
weird?
reason,
I love numbers. I love like
Yeah.
I'm
No,
not.
and
I
then-
was never good at math in school.
No,
Like that
this
was never my
past
strength.
year.
But like realistic math, real life math, I love it. I don't know why. I love crunchy numbers. It feels like a game to me in that it's like I love having like a goal or like I don't know.
But
Just
since
being able to
you
like
taking it over, like this past year has been the best year with a budget. Like
thanks to Dave Ramsey.
Well, you've tracked every single dollar,
Yes.
and I never did that.
Well,
Like,
I
you
didn't.
tracked-
I only learned that because the tool that I started using.
Yeah, but it's been great. And so I was thinking about that. I was like, man, I don't think we ever had a conversation when we first got married. I think I just was like, no, I'm just going to do it. But I don't think I ever asked you if like, because I wouldn't even really let you help me with it. Like, and that was part of the problem too. Is I think you weren't looking at the numbers
Right,
like
I didn't
was.
know. And so maybe you did know, but
and
I
think
didn't.
that actually caused a lot of conflict going back to the
I
last
agree.
question because and it was pulling it in insecurity because I was like, I think I saw my dad and I was like, no, I need to do this and I need to do it well. And I wasn't doing it well. And so you'd be like, what happened to all this money? And I'd be like, I don't know. And then I'd be like, but I'm doing fine. And then it would cause like conflict.
Well, and I probably honestly, I probably approached it in like a not.
Well, I was kind of keeping you in the dark. So
Wasn't we? Well, I did. Yeah, I just didn't know like.
Not because I was doing
Well, I was
weird things with our
the
money. I just
person
wasn't-
buying everything we needed, right?
Right.
But then I didn't know like how much I had to spend.
It was tough. And then I would feel weird being like, hey, you need to spend less money because we're dipping into savings. And then if I would say that, you would be like, well, why are we dipping into savings? And I'd be like, I don't know, because we spent money on this thing. And so it just wasn't healthy. But I feel like where we're at now.
Not on the same page.
I feel like since we transitioned, I don't even like look at our bank account
You
anymore.
don't.
Like I'm like totally, and it's great.
Which is fine.
I love it. Like,
Yeah.
but I don't know why I just had this expectation initially of like, I need to be the one to do.
Well,
so I
that's
would say
because
like
that's
if you're,
what that was modeled to you
Yeah.
as a kid,
So
which
if you're-
honestly was modeled to me too.
and we've talked to, I would say most of our friends, it's not uniform. Like some
No.
of the couples, wife does it, some couples,
Right.
the guy does it.
Well, and you still pay certain bills, or no? I think
and
we've
we have,
gotten
and
them
I
all
should
on
say,
automatic at
I
this
should
point.
say we do have a lot of conversation. So you're really good about like telling me what's going on.
It's because I just am a verbal processor.
Okay.
Versus like,
But no, my point with that is like, I'm not saying I don't have any idea what's going on.
No, yeah,
like
yeah,
I
yeah.
do because you do a really good job of tracking it, and then you fill me in.
even though I do make jokes sometimes about how I could buy that because I am the one.
You really know.
I
I don't
hold
know
all
if that
the
really
money.
answers the question. So talk more about the
Yeah,
how, because we kind of
okay.
said who does it, but how. So how, like, what do you do when you're doing the budget?
So, well, I started, I want to say it was maybe last spring or something, but your sister-in-law does their budget.
Yes.
And I was asking her what she uses.
So why did my brother not feel like he
No,
needs
okay,
to-
that's what it was. Because I felt like the spreadsheet thing wasn't working for us. So I was looking for something else. I don't know if it was necessarily that I was going to take over it. I was looking for something different.
and I
A
think, like,
different
my
tool that
computer
was
died, and so
better.
I hadn't even been doing it at all.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yep. So I was looking for a different tool that would be better. So I asked her what she uses, and
Why'd you ask her?
Because I knew she does the budget,
Oh.
and she's like very good about the budget. Like she's the best budgeter there is. Like
Okay.
in
No,
terms
you
of
are.
like being on it. Like she
Yeah.
is good about like each month she's like paying attention. But she said she uses the Dave Ramsey every dollar. And while I don't love, I mean, I think Dave Ramsey has a lot of good things to say. I'm not going to follow him to a T necessarily. But
This tool is pretty cool.
this tool is really great. It's like a free every dollar is what it's called. It's an app or a website. I prefer the computer just because it's easier. But basically you just, for the free version, you just like type in every like transaction So I try to do it every couple days, or it can get to be kind of a lot. But if you do it every couple days, you just like put in each new transaction from those last couple days so that the whole month is calculated in there. So then you have your income put in there so it knows exactly how much income you're expecting. So say you're expecting, I don't know, $5,000 for the month, and say like your expenses are $5,500. Then you know, like, oh, you got to cut $500. But like on the other side too, it's like, okay, say $500 or $5,000 is your income, and you're at like $3,500 in expenses. Then you know you have $1,500 that needs to be treated like a bill and thrown right into savings,
right?
Versus just waiting till the end of the month. So instead of saying, oh, we have extra, you're budgeting every single dollar, hence the name Every Dollar, and then like you have an amount that's supposed to go into savings, and it does, unless
I think it
you
was around this time last year because you took it over. I think also because there were some big things coming up we needed to pay for.
Yeah.
Like our insurance at the time didn't cover our home birth.
Right.
And so we were chipping away at that. But like you using this tool to track every dollar, like that really allowed us to, I think we paid it off like a month or two before the birth even happened. And so because you're like, well, this month we have a little bit extra, we can throw it at this. And
we were throwing everything at that.
Yeah. But
it felt really
I think
good.
For you, and you're just very visual. So it's like you can see it all.
Yes, I like that it's all, and every time I update something, it all updates. It's really, really nice, and it just feels very clean. So that would be my major recommendation, is that tool.
And I would say, find out, like, based on just strengths of your spouse, like who.
Yeah.
And I would say you're a little more passionate about it than I am. Like I think
because I care you. Like what.
Well, I care too.
No. I don't mean that. I just mean like I like really care like what our that our number is going up each month, or like that really I want that to happen. And so then it's like a big game to me of like how do we get it there? But I think there's that stereotype probably of like the male does it.
I don't know.
But I don't think it has to be that way.
Was stuck in my brain, but
I think like traditionally that probably is accurate.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I think like if that doesn't work, like that doesn't work.
You're better at it than me.
I enjoy it, and you never enjoyed it. No. I like knowing where everything. Maybe it's because I like control. I view it as
like a chore of something I have to do of updating the budget.
No, I like to because
you kind of enjoy it.
I like it because I see like, oh, I know this much is supposed to go here. This is supposed to go here, and so I love like hitting that and like reaching that. Yeah. Reaching goals that feel easy, and because I planned for them.
That's good.
I don't know. I feel like that's something we could probably talk. I don't know if we could talk more in depth about that or not.
Well, that's it. Summary is I'm bad at it. You're good at it, and. This past year has been the great year with the budget. I think year 7. So we're still figuring it out.
Yeah. Well, for sure. And I think the biggest part is just knowing where every dollar goes. It's funny because that's what it's called.
And I would say this wasn't really the question, but spouses should 100% be on the same page and know what's going on. And
totally.
Have access to everything and have a lot of conversations about
your
goals. And
right. When I'm setting everything up, like we talk about it. And
big purchases we talk about.
Big purchase. We talk about every big purchase, but I think
that while we were dating, I think. But
really?
Yeah, I feel like we would.
I feel like I've always just needed like permission to like someone to affirm like, yeah, you should buy that.
Yeah.
Versus me just feeling reckless. I don't like to feel reckless. So anyway,
that's good. I'm glad you're not reckless.
Yeah, no, I try not to be.
Yeah. No, you're not.
The Ninja Creamy was the most reckless I've ever been, I think. True. And I feel like we've gotten a lot of use out of it, so.
It's true.
It wasn't even a waste.
Good. Anything else?
I think that was it. That was all our questions.
That was it. Good questions.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good. Well, thanks for watching episode 3 of Outnumbered Podcast with Joey and Alleigh. We'll see you next time.